it's hard to tell people to hang tough that we're right with what we're talking about when manipulation just continues to beat you down. And I think it's had an effect over the last few weeks.
Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And we have a physical silver market update with Andy Schectman of Miles Franklin, because I know it's not been easy for people to watch the silver price get hammered pretty good over these past couple of weeks, especially some interesting activity around the Federal Reserve meeting last week. So, Andy, I appreciate you making some time to join me and give an update, because I'm wondering what's actually happening in the physical market. So, first of all, how are you today, my friend?
I'm good, brother. It's so good to hear your voice and good to be back on the show. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate that, and let's jump right in. Obviously, we saw, in Silver Squeeze, when the price finally gets on the higher end, people get excited. You've mentioned several times over the past few years, in particular, especially since COVID hit, that now when the price gets hammered on the COMEX, people tend to know that, well, it's frustrating but not real, and so they often keep buying. So what could you tell us? Did that happen again these last couple of weeks, or what's the order flow been like?
Truthfully, it's been a little bit slower. I think there are a lot of people fed up with the manipulation, and it's difficult, Chris. It's as well as I do. It's difficult to have strong fingertips and hang on to your beliefs when everything in your being tells you that the metals should be going much, much higher, and yet because of the nonsense on COMEX, it knocks the wind out of people. Seeing the price go down every day for 2 weeks has had an effect. And I would think that in general, order flow is much slower than it's been pretty much at any time over the past 2 years. Yet getting product is harder than it's been at any time over the last 2 years. So it's kind of a weird situation. Not a lot of product. Order flow is still strong in comparison to anything I've ever seen prior to COVID. But over the last 2 years, if we were to look at the last few weeks, it's slowed down a bit. And I think people are just tired, Chris. And it's hard to tell people to hang tough that we're right with what we're talking about when manipulation just continues to beat you down. And I think it's had an effect over the last few weeks.
Well, I could certainly imagine that. It is draining at times. Although I'm curious in terms of the premiums and the levels. Rafi Farber in his weekly Friday silver report has been mentioning that those, especially the junk silver premiums, continue to rise. I looked last week at some of the Silver Eagle prices online. It was over 50% over spot. What's going on with the availability and the premiums right now?
The premiums, Rafi's exactly right. No one sells junk silver, and so finding it's as rare as hen's teeth these days because no one sells it. This is why they say there is no bull market like a gold bull market, a metals bull market, because no one, even if the price is not behaving the way that we would anticipate, deep down people are smart enough to know that there's a reason, a nefarious reason behind it, and for that, even though it's not performing the way people would like it to, I think that their grip has intensified. So while there's not a huge amount of new business over the last few weeks, there's no selling. No one is selling. So getting things like junk silver, which hasn't been made in over 30 years, is increasingly difficult. So the U.S. Mint, Chris, is not allowed to go into the open market and purchase silver above the average spot price. And so what they're finding is an increasingly difficult situation to find 1,000-ounce bars to make the planchets, to make the Silver Eagles, because no one really wants to sell those 1,000-ounce bars to the U.S. Mint at spot. And as a result, the Mint has been woefully inadequate in providing enough in the way of supply to meet the demand. And so at $12 over silver spot, Chris, we're cheaper than anyone in the country on Silver Eagles. And, the thing of it is that the prices have been in this range literally for 2 years on Silver Eagles. And the question is it a new reality or what? Junk silver, which for years, when you and I started doing these shows, we were selling it at 60, 70, 80 cents over melt. now you're paying north of $8. It is really hard to get. So Silver Eagles and junk silver are the two most difficult things to get and carry the highest premiums by far of any items that we sell and anyone sells for that matter in the entire industry.
All right, appreciate the update on that. Question, as you mentioned, the mint there, and especially the 1,000-ounce bars. I look at it as there's a finite supply of silver that comes onto the market. Some of it goes to industrial, some goes to retail, yet they're kind of distinctly different markets. Are you seeing anything on the industrial side? What is the rate on the 1,000-ounce bars like? And have any of the, I don't know, I guess there's some product shortage, but the unavailability of products or difficulties in sourcing things, has any of that filtered over to the industrial side yet?
I mean, look, you can still get 1,000-ounce bars, but you have to pay a premium for them, and it's getting them at spot that is impossible. So there still is availability. You can see that by the deliveries off of COMEX. But to buy it at spot is a different story altogether. And, you know, I think that we haven't seen that rush that I expect to see by the industrials. And I'm surprised, actually. I would think the industrials would wise up to the reality that silver is becoming increasingly difficult to get. And I think we will see that moment. But at this point right now, no, Chris, I think there's enough silver for the industrials to gobble up. They just have to pay a premium above spot. And that's something the U.S. Mint can't do, but a private corporation who needs it for their end-use product can. And we're still at that point. But I could see it changing very quickly. I truly could. As we've seen J.P. Morgan go into COMEX over the last few delivery months and provide silver out of their eligible account into the registered to meet those demands. We've also seen a tremendous amount of exchange for physical, where large amounts of silver are being transitioned to the London Metal Exchange to be taken off over there, making it a little bit more difficult for people to really see what's happening in terms of industrial demand or large purchases, institutional demand. But I think we're not very far away, Chris, from seeing that moment where industrials and institutionals are really having a difficult time getting product. At this point right now, we haven't got there, but I would say we're not far away from it.
For me to see the inflation numbers getting much better, even if Jerome Powell's finally raising interest rates, although it seems like the stock market's struggling. And with some of the people you talk to, I wonder what it's like if a large allocation to bonds or the stock market, especially in watching, but I was surprised to see just how much the NASDAQ, down over 25% just since November. And especially if you're in one of these markets where, you know, they trade on momentum and like when maybe that could be one of the things that causes the sector reallocation. I'm curious if the people you're talking to mention that at all. Are there people who are saying, I don't want to be in the bond market anymore? Are those some of the ones buying, or have you not heard that quite so much just yet?
Actually, there's a very large financial advisory out of Minneapolis that I've worked with for years, and I've been receiving a lot of calls from their clients, not from the brokers, but from the clients who are all echoing that same sentiment. You know, you mentioned the NASDAQ off 25%. That puts it at its worst start to a year since 1971, the year that it started. So the big money who has a lot of money invested and a lot of it through financial advisories is waking up. They are waking up to what's happening with the S&P, with the Dow, with the Russell 2000, and look at the FANG stocks. They're all way off, and that's what most people own. So yes, those people are waking up, and I think that's what I've always been talking about, that Rubicon you cross where people wake up and say, my God, it's time to transition from making money to preserving it, retaining it. And that's what silver's role is to me in all of this. And yes, it offers great potential based upon the mining ratio and the gold to silver ratio. But as one of this, if not the only inversely correlated asset class to the U.S. stock market, I think people will wake up in mass as we see the Fed continue to tighten and more rumblings of countries selling, mostly to China, and to Russia their oil for either gold or yuan or ruble, other currencies or other commodities other than the U.S. dollar, which will only exacerbate the trend of rising rates. And I wonder just how serious the Fed is about tightening. They talk about selling off their balance sheet, but they're not going to do it until June. I wonder why they don't do it today, and why only raise interest rates 50 basis points? Why not raise it 500 basis points? Why not get really tough? And when we see that moment where it becomes obvious that they're backed into a corner, I hope that's when people, for their own sake, wake up and transition out of bonds in particular, but also stocks and investment real estate into silver, which arguably is the most undervalued asset on the planet, an opportunity of a generation. And my big concern with all of this, Chris, is when that moment happens, it'll happen very, very quickly overnight. And that's when product supply and shortages really becomes an issue. And, there's still a few minutes left before that happens. There's still availability. But I think when the public in large, in mass, wakes up to what's happening, that's when things really are going to get interesting very, very quickly.
Well, we can only imagine what will happen when the Putin price hike hits the market, and might add Russia, one of the significant silver producers on the globe. And some of the folks listening saw that article or video I did about Ronan Manley's article, where now they're looking at more backing that could include other commodities, which is what was reported. So Andy, last question. I hear that you were actually down like also a player in the game. Donald Trump frequents your course, and thought maybe you'd like to give a brief version of that story. I'm sure you asked him if we're getting a gold and silver reset, which I'm sure everyone would like to know. So perhaps before we wrap up, you could end on that note.
Yeah, absolutely. I was asked to play at Trump International in Palm Beach, and the president was there with Lawrence Taylor, the football player. And he walked into the room, and I happened to have a Trump silver coin that I use as a ball marker. And he came in, and he said to the whole room when we were having breakfast before the round, he was talking about how awful inflation was, how terrible it was, and that if he were president, he would have opened up the oil supply or the energy supply here in the U.S., and inflation would be gone in a matter of weeks. I asked the Secret Service if I could give him a coin. I wanted to give him the Trump coin, and they told me no, I couldn't get that close to him. But needless to say, it was very surreal. He was sitting in the table behind me while we had breakfast. He was in the group behind me when we played. And when we got to the third hole, the Secret Service came and asked us to move over and hang out for a few minutes while the president played through. He played through. He graciously said hello to all of us and took a picture with us. It was very cool, but it was neat to be able to talk to the guy even for a second and be in his presence. And he was very gracious and said hello to everyone. And let's just hope that we get someone like him or someone like him to come in and rescue us from this craziness that is the current administration.
Well, maybe if you tee up together with him again soon, you could ask him to put in a call to Ross the Boss Benham at the CFTC and get an update on how that silver report is going. Although with all that said, in closing, I know you had a deal on the 100-ounce bars this week. So for people who are looking to acquire silver, can you let them know what you're offering and how?
Yes, sir. I have the Royal Canadian Mint 100-ounce bars, brand new, the new style. I bought every single one that the Royal Canadian Mint distributor had left in stock. So they are in stock. They're ready for immediate delivery, and they are at the very, very lowest premium in North America at $3.95 over the price of silver. And while they last, it's the best value I've seen on Royal Canadian Mint 100-ounce bars in the better part of 2 years.
Well, I appreciate that. And if people want more information or to place an order, they can email Arcadia at Miles Franklin. And Andy, we're getting a little closer. Soon we're about ready to launch the Silver Chopper Ben. We're going to do a fantasy pack with some other fun prizes and silver items to kick that off. But hopefully we'll have Ben Bernanke's bald silvery head flying into people's kitchens soon. And Hopefully one day we'll get that in the list of things we can offer there at Miles Franklin. But until then, I just want to say thank you again for making some time. Great to catch up, and we'll look forward to doing this again soon.
Yeah, brother. Always great to hear your voice. Safe travels, and I do hope to catch up with you again soon. And every time I watch your YouTubes and I see that silver bend, the chopper spin, I want one so badly. So please put me on the list. And I know all of us listening to this want one of those silver bend choppers. It's as cool as it gets. But yeah, thanks for having me, buddy. And I do hope to talk to you soon.